and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another inks comparison video, and this is Pilot Iroshizuku Inks comparison number 2. So I think with that, let's go and swab up some of these inks. So the first ink I have here that we'll swab up is Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyu-Gaki. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you can see this is a lovely orange colour. Now I'm going to do a second pass, and I know a lot of people ask me, why do I do a second pass? Well, quite simply, I want to show the difference between a wet versus dry writing nib. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Fuyu-Gaki. Now, I do find that this is a more muted sort of pastel colour orange. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you can see that this is a really lovely sort of red colour. It's bordering on a pink, I would say. We'll do a second pass. Now this is quite a sheening ink, so I want to actually just do a third pass here, just so that you can kind of see the difference here. And when I say it's a sheening colour ink, look at the rim of this bottle. You can see that lovely greeny gold sheen there. It's a little bit like Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi in its sheen. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Momiji. But this is a really lovely red ink. It's I've gone through, I think I've gone through one bottle of that and one bottle of Tsukushi, which is the hot pink version. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Inaho. So we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see there that this is quite a watery ink. So it's not a highly saturated ink. But we'll do a second pass anyway, and we'll see how this ink shades. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Inaho. Now, I like this ink a lot. I got it because I wanted a more goldish ink, and I was going through a phase where I wanted more gold inks without shimmer. And this was one that, this is probably the closest I've got to a gold ink without shimmer. There's a few other Robert Oster and I think KWZ inks maybe. But this is the one that I normally go to if I want a gold or goldish coloured ink. Now, the next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi. Now, I did have an accident that this bottle actually fell, and the crack capped, and it leaked all over the label. So I managed to peel off the label, and I've just put this temporary label in its place. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, I do find that this is a little bit of a drier ink, and you'll see it here as you get to the bottom. We'll do a second pass just to see what the shading is going to look like. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Tsukushi, which basically stands for horse's tail. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Kiri-Same. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, I find that this is quite a wet ink. Now, I find it's wet or watery in terms of very similar to, say, Mont Blanc Oyster Grey. And I do like my grey inks, but I tend to prefer Diamine Earl Grey. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Kiri-Same. Now, whenever I mention Kirisame, a lot of people say Takisame is another good grey. But Kirisame is the one that I wanted. I wanted a light grey ink, and I've gone through about a bottle, I think, of this so far. So this is my second bottle. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Ku-Jaku. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this is, I would say, a little bit more of a saturated ink on the Pilot Iroshizuku line of inks. So we'll do a second pass. It's a little bit in between being very saturated and very wet, but like it does go on quite wet, I do find. So this is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Ku-Jaku. And this was an ink that I didn't think I was going to like, but a friend sent me a sample, and I tried to sample, and I put it, I think it was just in a sort of blue pen, and I liked it that I decided I would buy a bottle of it. And the last ink in this ink comparison is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsuki-Yo. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this is quite a saturated ink. We'll do a second pass. So you can see that there. This is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it is Tsuki-Yo. So let's take a look at these inks one more time. So we have Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyu-Gaki, and you can see here a difference between the wet and the dry sort of writing nib. This does have a bit of shading going on. It also wants to sheen, and you can kind of see it there, that it's trying to sheen, it's trying its best, but it's just not quite sheening. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji. Now, this is a reddish ink that tends to go a little bit more pinkish. And you can see here the difference between a wet and a dry nib. The dry is a little bit more muted or a little bit faded. But then there's a little bit of shading going on. But then you have this intense sheen. And you can just see that sheen there. That goldish sheen is a lot of sheen going on there. So this is a sheen monster of an ink. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Inaho, and this is probably the ink that I notice the most difference with in terms of a wet and a dry nib. You can see the huge amount of shading going on there in that wet nib, in that sort of wetness of the ink there here. But it doesn't really sheen. It wants to, but it just doesn't sheen at all. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi, which is horse's tail, and I find in a dry nib it looks a little bit more of a sort of a horse chestnut colour. But you can see here it's a very different colour in the darker version of the ink there. But you will see, hopefully, on camera, this does sheen a lot. And just trying to get that on camera because it does sheen a lot there. So this is a very sheeny ink that you can have there. And I also find in a wet nib it does actually shade a little bit as well. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Kirisame, which is a grey ink. There's not a huge difference, maybe a bit of a sort of a gradient going on here between a dry and a wet writing nib. There is some shading around the pulled areas. There is no sheening though there. The next ink is Pilot Iroshizuku, and this is Ku-Jaku, which is a lovely sort of blue ink. There's definitely a lot of difference here between the light blue and the dark blue here. So there's quite a bit of difference there. You do get some shading, but then you get some very wicked sheen going on there. So you can see that there, it really does sheen a lot. And then the last ink is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsuki-Yo. And you can see here that there's a lot of difference between the light and the darker areas here, the dry and wet. There's some shading going on as well. And then hopefully you can see here that there is a lot of sheen as well. So there you have it. That's my Pilot Iroshizuku Inks Comparison number 1 video. If there are any inks that you like here on this video, then let me know in the comments below. And likewise, if there are any other inks in the Pilot Iroshizuku range you think I should check out, then do let me know in the comments below. So there you have it. That's my Pilot Iroshizuku Inks Comparison number 2 video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.